Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub, chatting with ISO experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and we have two wonderful guests for you today. First, we have Suzanne Weber-Smatko, Manager of Consulting Services here at Core. And next, we have Bruce Newman, Consultant here at Core Business Solutions. Great to have both of you with us today.
Thanks, X.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. We're so glad to have both of you here again. You have been on before. Today, we're going to be talking about how the aerospace industry and how its standard AS9100 and 9120 differs from ISO 9001. And let's dive right into our first question. What is AS and how does it compare to ISO 9001?
Aerospace standard is basically ISO 9001 on steroids. They've taken ISO 9001 and every clause in ISO 9001 applies. And then they've added some enhancements and embellishments to make it a bit more stringent. Some examples would be the fact that ISO technically requires no documentation. AS does. They require you to have a quality manual. There are some prescribed procedures. They require you to have a management representative for the quality system. And they get into a bit more detail about the requirements for safety, ethics, and quality.
All right. Well, let's move on to Suzanne now and have our first question for her. What are the primary objectives of AS9100 and AS9120 versus ISO 9001?
AS9100 is specifically designed for businesses in the aerospace industry. 9001 can be used by any business or any industry in order to implement a quality management system. The AS9100 features additional requirements related to product safety, operational risks, and different controls on your suppliers with flowing down certain terms and conditions. Both standards share a focus on quality management and continual improvement. And by meeting the requirements of either one of these standards, the intent is that businesses can demonstrate their commitment to providing high quality of products and services. The primary difference is focusing on the risks and a good product realization process from start to finish.
Okay. From
the time that you get a contract to the time that you ship your product and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a focus on having a really good, robust product realization process.
Bruce, do you have anything?
Another difference is that ISO 9001 focuses root cause for problems and corrective actions in processes. Mm-hmm. AS9100 and 9120 both allow for employee error as a potential root cause for corrective actions. And there's quite a bit more emphasis on traceability. Traceability is basically left to the if it's a customer requirement in 9001, then it's a requirement. Otherwise, you're allowed to exclude it. With aerospace, traceability is a requirement. You have to keep track of raw materials used in end products, manpower associated with any assembly or manufacturing, and calibrated gauges that are used during the process.
Okay. So, a lot of people might ask, is there an ROI? Is it worth it to get certified with AS9100 or any of those, any of the AS standards?
Well, it's really something that you have to answer individually as a company, but there are a lot of fairly general returns on investment that you could expect from certification.
Okay.
Some contracts require certification before you can even bid. So that's one. And there is also an opportunity to charge a premium for your products or services based on the fact that you are certified. You may see some reductions in scrap and rework due to the improvements in processes that one would expect from implementing an AS-based management system. And maybe even insurance. That may be another savings. So intangibles include just the fact that you can stand out from your competitors as a certified business. And I guess it just shows a commitment to quality, because AS certification is not cheap, and it requires resources and commitment from management, support. So there's that as well.
Okay.
There are lots of companies that actually do this proactively. And the thought being, what we're building is maybe not used in aircraft now, but it could be. So let's just prepare for the future and be ready for it. It's not a huge leap to go from 9001 to AS9100 typically. So it probably makes good business sense.
Okay. All right. So Suzanne, do you have any common misconceptions that people have with AS9100, 9120?
A lot of the things that I see with aerospace customers is that they don't realize that they must have that traceability to calibrated gauges and what product was measured with calibrated gauges.
Okay.
For example, if you have a nonconformance that has escaped your facility, you have to be able to determine what gauges were used to measure that particular product and have a containment process in place.
Wow.
So you have to be able to positively recall any product that was used with outdated calibration or something that had failed calibration.
So that would have more documentation involved because you basically need to know where things are going as well,
yeah,
right?
And a good way to implement that is I recommend to customers is that they come up with a way to have operators record on their inspection documentation what gauge, their ID or serial number on that gauge be added to that inspection records. You know, having no traceability is worse than having to go through maybe 500 inspection records to find out what product was inspected with that. Additionally, the raw materials, right? You have to have traceability to the incoming raw materials to what it was used on. So if you had a supplier issue, you can positively recall or identify what batches might have come into the supplier that went into your product.
Okay.
So that traceability needs to be there as well.
Bruce, do you have anything?
What I would say is a lot of people are scared of AS. They just think it's going to be a really tough row to hoe after compared to ISO 9001. It's really not. It's it makes a lot of sense, just like ISO 9001 does now. It makes a lot of sense. There's not a bunch of useless type busy work or documentation that's required. Most of the, like I mentioned, the required procedures in the manual. I mean, everybody has a manual anyway, right?
Right.
And the 6 procedures are, they're common sense procedures.
But do either one of you have any stories, or both of you, where aerospace is really, they've gotten into AS9100, 9120, and it's really helped grow their company?
Yeah, I have. And some of my ex-colleagues would probably laugh about this, but I always talked about the good product realization process, right? There is a company that I had worked for or were associated with in my past that there was a product that was supposed to be made out of one alloy and it was made out of a different alloy. We reviewed purchase order. The wrong material specification was entered into the system. It was ordered wrong. It was made wrong. It was shipped wrong. And by the time you knew it, legal had to get involved and there was accruals that we had to do in order to cover ourselves. Thankfully, the material we used was a different higher tensile strength and higher strength of material than the material it was supposed to be made out of. But when we got down to the root cause, it was the process. I mean, we had a contract review process that depended on one person. And if that one person made a mistake,
which humans do,
there was no oversight to validate. So we wound up having a quality engineering systematic check that if the materials didn't match, it wouldn't allow you to place a purchase order. And that was our permanent fix. But there were parts in the sky and, thankfully it wasn't that
negative of an outcome, but it gave them a chance to learn and
absolutely
do it right.
And for me, it was a big learning experience in terms of how robust a contract review process needs to be when it comes down to critical characteristics that are on your blueprints or on your customer purchase orders.
Bruce, do you have anything?
Well, I don't know of any AS certifications that haven't resulted in more business for the companies. That's the whole point of getting into it. But I do have an interesting story.
Okay.
One of the companies I worked with made, of course, everybody that goes on airplanes now uses the airplane Wi-Fi, right? To watch
Right.
movies and whatever. So these guys make the antenna that collects the Wi-Fi signal on the aircraft. When I was driving up to the place, I saw an interesting structure out in front of their building and came to find out that what they would do is to test these items, they would build the pod that holds the antenna, and it's a structure that sits outside the plane, and fire frozen turkeys against it at like 500 or 600 miles an hour to see if it held up or not. They also used, frozen. Well, I think they thaw them first, but they shoot turkeys at aircraft windshields and such to test them. But I actually got to see the mechanism, so that was kind of interesting to me. I never got to see a turkey shoot.
Yeah,
but it was cool to see the
I have
the structure and everything.
I was blessed enough to work for an OEM and saw went to maintenance classes for engines and saw some of that testing going on, and it is really, really neat to see. But if there is ever an aha moment, when you go through that experience, the aha moment is when you realize, wow, there's so much that goes into this, and so much reliability on people's ethical, their quality management systems. Do it right.
It does show the importance of it, and also why, to make sure you can meet all those requirements that are more stringent, but also why they're so stringent.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate you both talking to me today. I think this has been really valuable for some of our customers who may be considering venturing into the AS realm, or maybe they aren't certified yet and they need to be. This gives them some things they got to think about. Really appreciate you both being here.
Thank you, X.
My pleasure. Hope we were helpful.
Absolutely. And we want to thank all of you who've listened to our podcast today. We hope it's been informative for you. Now, if you're looking for more information about how Core Business Solutions can help you with your ISO certification, cybersecurity, even customized training, please email us at info@thecoresolution.com. You can also visit our website at www.thecoresolution.com. And if you haven't already followed us on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, be sure to do so, and that way you won't miss the next Quality Hub podcast when it's dropped next week. Have a great day, everyone.